Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to tackle a challenge that, let's be honest, we all face. How do you make your data analysis actually make sense to other people? We're taking a deep dive into a feedback document from a university course and turning it into a super practical guide for making your work clear, precise, and, powerful.
So, let's just jump right in with the big question, the one that's at the heart of everything we're about to talk about. You've done the hard work, you've crunched all the numbers, you've run the tests, but what about the story? Is the story your data is telling the right one? Is it clear? Is it accurate? Let's figure that out.
Okay, we're going to start our journey by leveling up on the absolute basics. And I know it might seem simple, but how we define our core concepts is so important. Getting the language right from the get-go, well, it prevents a whole world of confusion later on.
Okay, take a word like sample. We use it all the time, right? It's just a little piece of something. But in statistics, the language has to be way more exact. A sample isn't just any old part of the population. It is a carefully selected subset that's been chosen to represent the larger group. And that one word, represent, that changes everything.
And what's so cool here is you can see how a tiny change in wording adds so much clarity and, frankly, professionalism. Saying subset selected to represent is just so much stronger than part of. It shows there was a plan, a method. And then clarifying that we use these samples to make inferences about the whole population, that's the whole point. That's why this work is so valuable in the first place.
This right here perfectly illustrates a huge idea in statistics. We're in the business of managing and reducing uncertainty, but we almost never eliminate it completely. No method is magic. So when we talk about something like probability sampling, saying we reduce the risk of bias is way more accurate and more honest than claiming we eliminate it. It shows we understand the real world of research.
All right, let's move on to level 2 and see how all this starts to build. We've got our precise definitions locked in, so now it's time to focus on turning a boring list of numbers into a story, a compelling narrative about your data. This is where the analysis really starts to sing. So the huge difference here is the shift from just, dumping data on the page to actually interpreting what those numbers mean when you put them together. The weak example is just a list. The strong one connects the dots. It explains that because the mean and median are so close, it points to a symmetrical distribution. See? You're starting to build a picture for your audience.
And a really strong analysis. It takes it one step further. It connects the numbers back to the real, messy human world. This quote from the source material is just perfect. It doesn't stop at high kurtosis. It asks, so what, and answers. This might mean we're seeing people who do shift work, or maybe people with certain health conditions. Now that's data storytelling.
This shows why you have to know your tools. You can't just throw standard deviation and IQR on the page and pretend they're the same thing. They're not. They're measuring different aspects of the data spread. One tells you about the whole picture, outliers and all, while the other zooms in on just the middle 50%. Knowing that lets you tell a much richer, more nuanced story. Okay, now we're getting into the real heavy hitters, hypothesis testing. And let me tell you, this is one area where being precise with your language isn't just, good practice, it is absolutely essential. Getting this wrong can undermine your entire findings.
Oh boy, this is a mistake I see all the time. An analyst sees a negative number and their brain just immediately jumps to small or not important. But in the world of t-statistics, that is a massive misunderstanding of what this number is actually telling you.
The truth is, a t-statistic of negative 15.42 is, it's huge. It's gigantic. For context, anything over about 2 or 3 is usually a big deal. The negative sign has nothing to do with the size of the effect. It just tells you the direction. In this specific case, it means that people slept less on Saturday than they did on Sunday. The size of that number, the 15.42, tells you that this difference is very, very unlikely to be a random fluke.
So here's the deal. To do this like a pro, you've got to use the formal language of statistics. It's like a code. We don't accept the alternative, we reject the null. We don't find large differences, we find statistically significant ones. And we almost never, ever prove anything. We find evidence that supports a conclusion. This language isn't just for show. It reflects the careful, probabilistic nature of our work.
All right, let's talk about the tool that's on everyone's mind, generative AI. It can be an incredible helper, for sure. But the real level-up moment comes when you stop using it as just a simple problem solver and start using it as a genuine learning partner.
And this is a perfect example of that shift in thinking. The first statement? It's fine. It's transactional. I had a problem, AI fixed it. But the second one? That shows real learning. The person didn't just get the answer, they asked why. Why wasn't my negative t-statistic an error? And in doing so, they learned the exact concept we were just talking about. That's using AI to get smarter, not just to get done.
I love this quote from the source material because it is so incredibly honest and it highlights the #1 rule of using AI. It is a guide, not a guru. It can be wrong. It can make stuff up. That uneasy feeling the person describes, that's a good thing. That's your critical thinking kicking in, telling you to slow down and double-check what the AI is telling you with sources you actually trust.
Okay, we've made it to the final level, polishing for professional impact. These are the little details, the small tweaks to your writing and formatting that don't change your results, but they absolutely change how your work is perceived. This is what separates the good stuff from the great stuff.
Just look at the difference here. When you cut out those fluffy, unnecessary phrases like, "it can be observed that," the writing instantly becomes more direct and confident. And getting rid of the first-person I is a classic move in academic writing. It shifts the focus from you, the researcher, to the research itself. It just sounds more authoritative.
And it's the same idea here. These small changes add a real layer of polish. Writing out minimum instead of min might seem picky, but it signals that you're taking care. And describing the variable first, in plain English, before putting the technical name in parentheses, that makes your work so much more accessible to people who might not know all the jargon. It's a sign of respect for your audience.
So, when you boil it all down, the big takeaway here is that great data analysis is so much more than just getting the math right. It's a craft. It's about combining that statistical precision with clear, compelling communication. It's about turning those raw, cold numbers into a story that's not just accurate, but is also insightful. Which really just leaves one final question for you to think about in your own work.